Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, because it's Big Will from Heavy Hole Podcast, and I'm here with none other than multi-instrumentalist Mike Colby of the projects Plasmodulated, Wharf Lurch, Hot Cross, and many others we're going to get to the bottom of. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm feeling all right, man. The listeners don't know that behind the scenes I had one of my most classic name and intro fuck-ups, so we're good to go now, man. We're greased up. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you for your time, man.
Yo, I appreciate you having me, man. I'm really, really happy to be here.
Of course, man. We finally did. I've been meaning to get you on for a while now. People might be familiar, of course, with Wharf Lurch's trajectory lately in the death metal community, as well as your other bands. But before we get into all that, typical Heavy Hole Podcast question, are you from a particularly musical family, musicians in your background, or anyone that steered you to get into hard rock and heavy metal?
Well, yeah, my dad plays guitar. He builds guitars. He's, a very musically oriented dude in general. So, yeah, he definitely got me into it because this record collection was pretty fucking sick. I gotta admit, dude. Like he was not about no bullshit. Like he didn't have no Beatles records. You know what I'm saying? He had like Zeppelin records. He had all the like first three Black Sabbath records. He had a shit ton of Cream records and the Who, but he didn't have none of like no Rolling Stones. You know what I mean? No Beatles. He was like very adamant about that shit.
Okay, wow. So Dad didn't play.
Dad wasn't fucking around, bro.
Damn. Was he a musician himself?
Yeah. He plays guitar, man. He builds guitars. He's super into like guitar in general,
Okay, all right, I got it now. So right off the bat, you are definitely absolutely from a musical family.
Sure.
What sort of music was Dad into while you were growing up in terms of performing? Like, what was he playing a lot?
Well, he gave up playing like when I was kind of like a baby and shit because he just had to work a regular job and shit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't be out there like, mixing it up, drinking and fucking around and all that bullshit. So basically he stopped playing when I was like maybe 1.5, something like that. But he was playing, regular rock shit. But also, he was telling me they would play like Kool and the Gang songs and stuff like that too. So I was like, damn, that's tight.
So is it kind of like you just inherit a guitar at some point when you're old enough to play?
Honestly, with him, it was like he never really pushed me to play. One day I dragged the guitar out from underneath the bed and there was like a Mel Bay chord book in that bitch. So I just started learning chords. And then when I was learning chords, I noticed if you played them in a certain order, it sounded like this song. And if you played it in a different order, it sounded like that song. And it just like, I just rolled with that from that basically.
Okay, so what? Now let's slow down for a minute. You're from Florida originally, are you not?
Yeah, boss.
Okay, what part of Florida are we talking?
We're talking South Florida. I'm from Fort Pierce, so it's like the Treasure Coast, as they call it. It's where they found a lot of treasure, like from old school bullshit.
Okay, interesting. So now I know a little bit of touring experience getting out there, in the last several years, but I don't know, was it easy for you to see touring bands growing up? Because I know sometimes bands don't always hit South Florida. They go through North Florida and that's it, because it's a big...
when I was growing up, honestly, I didn't give a fuck about like some touring bands that much. Occasionally we'd see a touring band, like when I was like, okay, let's say, when I was like 16, right? I was in like a ska punk band and a couple other bands, and we were playing at a lot of these venues, right? But we were 16 years old. But like these guys, they knew us from playing shows. So if we went to these other shows where you had to be older, they would actually let us in because they knew we weren't fucking around. We weren't going to cause them any problems or whatever. So I ended up getting to see a lot of really cool bands when I was like 16 years old in that whole area because I was already playing shows and shit. So I got to see way cooler bands than the ones I was playing with. I got to see like Malevolent Creation. I got to see Death one time. I got to see Obituary a few times. You know, all that kind of shit, you know.
Okay, man. And just for the listeners, and even for me, you know, I'm up here in New York. I've been to Florida a few times, but like people might hear the show and hear me and think, oh, this guy knows Mortician and Suffocation and all these bands that are a different generation from me, and more idols of mine than friends of mine, really, just because of the region or whatever. Like people might hear you talk about Florida and they automatically, you know, what comes to their mind is what you just said: Death, Obituary, Malevolent Creation. Where does your local scene, where you grew up, kind of fit into this? Are you a little bit younger than those guys? Is it a different region than what people might be thinking?
I mean, where I'm from, like, I graduated high school in like 1995, boss.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you know, where I'm from, all that shit was popping off, you know, like metal bands were playing, ska bands were playing. There was all kinds of shows. There was like rave shit happening. There was all kinds of shit popping off in South Florida. So,
wow. Okay, so class of '95, you really did see like the heyday of Florida death metal as a youngster, then, huh?
yeah, I mean, I mean, see, like I feel like I grew up with that shit a little bit because, you know, when I was a kid, it was like everybody was talking about speed metal and all this kind of stuff being like the next like jump up or whatever. But then all of a sudden that was like not cool. And then there was thrash metal. And then, you know, of course, death metal happened. It was just like, it was just all this stuff like went past me faster than I could buy the tapes. You know what I mean?
How did you get into more extreme music? Because I assume obviously your dad's pretty hip. He's got the records. He's playing guitar. I assume you're exposed to other musicians that way. But where did things kind of go underground for you? And like, take us through your like metal kind of genealogy, like figuring out for yourself, metal, hardcore, punk, whatever it was.
Okay, sure, yeah. Well, for me, okay, so it started really with, I guess, you know, I was listening to Black Sabbath because my dad had Black Sabbath records. I really got into thrash metal because that's the stuff I had access to buying the tapes. So I was buying all that shit like Testament, Exodus, the Metallica albums, Megadeth, all that kind of stuff. But then I started finding like weirder thrash bands, right? Like Sadus or like Indestructible Noise Command or like some weirdo bands like that.
Yeah.
And even like Overkill. I loved Overkill. I thought they were great, you know, like. And then there was like the sillier bands too that were like Wrathchild America and fucking Scatterbrain and like just dumb shit like that was coming out. I ended up buying like all of that shit. You know what I mean?
All right. And what about, now you talked about playing in ska bands, which in the 90s, that was a big deal. And it wasn't necessarily as commercialized then as it became like in the late 90s, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and all that. I've been meaning to have some friends of mine on who actually are a lot more involved in like the ska and oi music scenes. Is that the type of scene that you were involved in terms of ska music, or like what was it like?
So in terms of ska music, like what we were doing down there, it's like we kind of were like, you know the band Operation Ivy?
Yes, yeah.
So you know how they were kind of like pop punk and ska mixed together?
Yes, definitely.
So we kind of did the same thing, but we mixed like a different kind of pop punk with it. So we did kind of more like a Dag Nasty style, but still like did like a ska thing too. I don't know how to explain it other than that.
What was
we were trying to put our own stank on it, you know what I'm saying, dog? Like it was we were trying to flex.
Was it anything we could look up? Did you guys record anything and put it out, or?
Hell yeah, dog. You can look it up. The band is called Government Cheese, and it's spelled like, you know, GOV''T cheese. And somebody just uploaded our first demo to YouTube like a year and a half ago or something like that, and I was astounded, honestly. I was like, how the hell do you have this?
It all comes up, bro. It all comes
Yo,
out. It all comes out in the woodwork nowadays, man.
that's ass,
None of us are going to be able to run for president, man. It's all of the gore grind demos are out there.
Thank gosh.
I got because like, look, the word ska gets a bad rap, especially in the metal scene. I enjoy a little Operation Ivy. Still, I found my cassette when I was cleaning up a few years ago. We recently had my friend Mike Bruno, who's in a band called Iron Chic from up here. That's a lot more in that kind of raw pop punk direction. And what's funny enough, tomorrow I'm interviewing a friend of mine who's kind of like from this, he's a little bit more from the straight edge hardcore community, but he also does like punk that's probably more comparable to that scene than what we typically cover here on Heavy Hole. So it is part of it, especially for those who grew up in a certain era in the 90s, before things got so commercialized. Yeah. I think
trust me, like, so really what the thing about it was in South Florida, though, it's like you could be in a band like that, but like there might not be too many other bands like that where you could just throw a show where it's all like ska bands or some shit, right? So we actually ended up playing with a lot of like hardcore bands and shit like that. It was pretty ridiculous.
How'd that go?
I mean, honestly, the way we wrote our music was based towards like having dance parts. Like this is a circle pit part. This is kind of like a skank part. This is a breakdown part. Like it had kind of like a dance oriented setup to it. So yeah. I don't know. It went over pretty well. Those guys all had fun.
So I mean, some of my first shows were kind of like DIY shows in like church basements and at the YMCA here in Huntington on Long Island, where you would literally have this. The Ska Floors was a big local ska band here.
Yo, I played a show with the Ska Floors.
They would play with underground hardcore bands here on Long Island at DIY spaces. Yeah, definitely, man. So they came down to Florida, huh?
Yeah, at one point, I think they did a little ragtag little tour. We played with so many bands back then, though. It was like, we played with the Toasters a lot. We played with Murphy's Law and the Toasters when they were on this tour called Ska Punks No Losers, trying to make fun of Lollapalooza or whatever.
I see that's the thing, though. I could see that being a big bill back in the day. That's definitely a certain audience.
Right, in like 1992, 93, yeah, that shit was fucking popping, son.
Wow. Okay, man. So you guys definitely got it. That's interesting,
like,
man.
There was like 500 people easily at that show.
Yeah, man.
At like this little ass venue. It was crazy.
Because that's the thing. Ska was equally kind of from an underground DIY. People need to look that up. It's not just whatever like MTV.
Motherfuckers did not care. Like this is all pre-basketball, all pre-Real Big Fish, all pre like, all these things happening. People were out there just having a good time at the show, honestly. They didn't really give a fuck. They didn't have any idea about it. Like I actually really like Jamaican music. So Jamaican ska from like the old days and all that shit, I really like to listen to that. Like, and I have mad records like that and all that kind of shit. I DJ that kind of shit too. But like, the kind of ska, the Operation Ivy, the post-Operation Ivy era, let's call it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is great because it's like I said, I have a few friends who are a little bit more into the skinhead subculture. Obviously.
Oh yeah, right.
And I was gonna have one of them, and obviously the part of that was gonna be explaining the difference between Nazi skinheads and the rest of the skinhead subculture, which is a whole thing people can look up if they need to. But I know a guy who could really go deep on that whole history of ska and the English ska and how it all dates back to Jamaican music and that sort of thing. I've been wanting to get someone on to talk about that, so that's funny that you should bring it all up.
Yeah, I mean, for real, the only reason that the ska shit made it through England like that is because of the colonialism of England and having all that shit to do with Jamaica. And there was a lot of Jamaican people being brought over to England, especially out of Bristol and all these type of port places like that. And like the music spread pretty quickly because, those people were there. They're just going to do it. And of course, the white people caught on. And next thing you know, we got the specials and we got madness and we got all this other shit. You know what I mean?
Gave it the Elvis treatment.
A little bit. They did good with it though. At least they came out with a song called "Racist Friend." You know that song?
No, yeah, that was not fair of me to say, man, because I know what you're talking about. A lot of that first wave kind of English ska from back in the late 70s, early 80s.
I mean, those people were dead ass serious about doing their music, man. You know, it was very cool. Even the Clash, bro.
I feel like when the Mighty Mighty Bosstones busted open in the late 90s, that was kind of like when it really got kind of overflowed and it was a little too commercial, and that's why people have this stereotype of it, you know?
Yo, my G, we opened up for the Mighty Mighty Bosstones in Orlando. That shit was wild.
Wow, that must have gone nuts, right?
That shit was crazy, bro.
That
motherfucker Dickie got up in the goddamn rafters, be like up in the goddamn like I was dead ass scared for his fucking life. And I don't know, bro. That dude's crazy.
I do regret I never got to see them live. You know, I'm not disrespecting them, man, but when that, you know, we all know what we don't have to refrain the song. We all know what song it was, but when that song busted wide open in the 90s, man, it was kind of like people looking back don't realize the history of ska all the time when they talk about it, you know? Bro,
like the thing is though, I was already a fan of them before that shit. They were on Tang Records, you know that?
Yeah, oh, they go back. I mean, I don't know the whole history with. I don't know.
But do you know what Tang Records is?
No, I don't.
Tang Records is like out of Boston. They had like the original like first two Lemonheads records. They had
that's crazy.
Like the Hard-Ons. They had SSD. The whole SSD compilation of all the SSD shit was on Tang Records. You know who SSD is?
SSD. Yeah? Is that the Boston Straight Edge band?
Yeah.
And they had their second album. What was it? How We Roll or How We Rock? What was that album?
I don't know. I can't remember because I only had the discography. Like it was like a compilation.
Yeah, that's
good
shit.
Tang Records that did.
Yeah,
it was called Tang with two A's. TAANG Records with an exclamation point.
All right, man.
It was like some shit out of Boston, I guess.
I lose scene points by admitting I don't know shit just for the listeners, man, you know?
No, it's cool because I shouldn't even know this. This is real dumb, dog. But like they had a lot of different cool, like goofy bands and shit. And then they ended up signing the Bosstones before they got their major label deal.
That's cool. I'm going to look this up too, man. That's interesting. SSD too. Wow. Okay, so.
Yeah, dude. I still got that tape somewhere. I could produce it right now. Probably.
I have a vinyl I bought online somewhere because it was cheap and it was really good, man. It reminded me kind of like maybe like the Crumbsuckers or the Chromag, old Crumbsuckers, maybe a little Chromags.
Crumbsuckers is cool, yeah.
Little metal crossover thing going on, man. Cool shit. Wow. All right, we went all the way out there on a tangent, man. We went down the ska wormhole. I didn't think we were going to go there. But
I didn't either, dude. Not at all.
That's awesome, dude. All right, so at the end, remind me. When we do the recommendations, we'll throw some ska in there. But for now, let me get back, man, because I do want to promote your current bands and your non-ska related music too. Eventually. So we were talking about your old bands. You were obviously heavy in the ska scene back in the day, opening up for, if the listeners don't realize this, because the average heavy hole listener might, is obviously steeped in a different genre, but the Toasters, the Scofflaws, the Bosstones, these were all like cult ska bands that you wanted to be into in the 90s if you were in the know in the underground ska scene. So
the Toasters toured a lot, dude. Those guys were working their asses off.
Yeah, those were all the big names back in the day. I mean, I know this. I used to see them around, in the record stores and reading zines and shit. So you kind of learned a lot about underground shows and the way the underground scene works. A lot of that translates to death metal and to hardcore in terms of just booking and promoting and all that, and DIY ethics and and all that. It's across the board, really, regardless of genre, right? I'm sure you learned a lot that carries over.
Well, I mean, during that time, like I may have been like in a ska band, but I was still buying like Morbid Angel albums and shit like that. So I wasn't really delving deeply into the shit. Like literally I took a cue from a couple things like, and then, just went my own way with it. but I was still already listening to like other music.
Okay, so then I know, like, obviously, shout to Metal Archives. I did your Metal Archives, like everyone knows. It's no secret.
True.
We
True.
have the Cult of Ouroboros. Is that like your first venture into a metal project,
No,
or?
I mean I had metal bands when I was like in like middle school and stuff like that, like thrash bands, you know what I mean? And then like but we just didn't really have a way to record except for boombox, so there's really no, I don't really have any like, I mean I do have proof of it. It's just, it's a boombox rehearsal recording, which sounds sick, but whatever. But like really, I abandoned metal for a while because it just, mostly the whole scene in South Florida was a hardcore scene, and I didn't really like that shit. Like I like metal. I didn't really like hardcore. I thought hardcore was kind of stupid. I still do.
Okay.
I mean, I like Negative Approach and shit like that, but like I don't like Judge and all that kind of shit like everybody liked in the 90s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have my hardcore bands I like, but in the 90s it was a different thing too. There was a heavy metal versus hardcore mentality up here. Like if you were metal, you couldn't be into hardcore and vice versa type thing.
And like I didn't even get that shit. Like to me, I was just like, oh yeah, hardcore is just like metal, but it's like the guys, they don't play guitar as good, so whatever, you know what I mean? Like who cares? Like I was just like, it's heavy shit. It's all just heavy shit. But I just didn't like the tough guy attitude part.
Yeah. Yeah, the crew thing, man.
Yeah, I didn't like any of that dumb shit.
Yeah,
I was like, all these people want to do this together? All right, I'm out.
Listeners of the show who are a little bit more steeped in what bands you've been in, might know about Hot Cross.
Hot Graves.
Oh, fuck. We're gonna edit that out. So I'm sorry, dude.
No, it's fine. It's okay.
I'm a little toasty.
Hot Graves, yeah, man. You know what's funny? Oh shit! Here we go. Let's get deep, bro.
We'll definitely edit that. Fuck.
So Hot Graves is one of my longer standing bands, and we're about to come out with a new album like very soon. But the latest incarnation of the band was actually solidified at one of your shows, because John Mamo and I, who are both in Warflurch and Hot Graves,
yes,
we went down to the Demilich tour where Blood Incantation and Artificial Brain were opening.
Yes, okay.
And then we met up with our longtime friend Jamie, who is the singer of The Absence, and between him and the guy who was doing merch for Demilich, fucking Andrew Garrity. He was goading us on. We were talking about reforming Hot Graves, but I was like telling him like, but you have to be the singer. I'm not singing no more. It's going to be a different whole thing. Okay. And he just was like, yeah, let's do it. But it happened at that show that you guys played in Florida.
Wow, that's awesome.
On your little vacation tour.
Yeah, the little vacation tour. 2018. Hard to think it's been that long.
Was it 18? I thought it was 17. You might be right though. It might be 18.
It was 18. Yeah, it was 18. Wow. Yeah, Andrew Garrity. Shout to Garrity. Haven't seen him in quite some time.
Oh yeah, you know Garrity? Yeah.
Well, he was on the whole tour. So
okay, cool.
So we got we got to know him that week and see him around. Yeah, man. Shout to Garrity. And Demilich.
We love Garrity.
Wow, that's funny, man. So, okay, yeah. So I obviously I'm famous for saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. So Hot Graves, the name of your band. Speaking of wrong names, with John Mamo, right?
Yeah, John Mamo is now the drummer of Hot Graves and Warflurch. Yeah.
Okay, he's the drummer of Warflurch.
He is the drummer and vocalist of Warflurch. Yeah.
Okay, trying to keep up here. And I get the impression that you go back with him a long time.
Yeah, I met him probably a decade ago, but we probably got really tight like 6 or 7 years ago. You know what I mean? Honestly, he pulled me out of a hole in my life that was very terrible. He helped he helped to pull me out of a hole in my life where I was going through some bullshit. And I can never thank him enough for being in my life. He just had his birthday a couple days ago. I'm forever grateful for that gentleman.
Wow, happy birthday shout to him. And I'm happy to hear that, man. That's great, man. Not every day you hear such high accolades for a bandmate. That's awesome, man. And
he's a beautiful man.
I see that because obviously he's in he eventually took, well, no, he was actually he was the original guy in Wharf Lurch doing vocals while you did the music, was he not, in the beginning?
Yeah, so Wharf Lurch really started because me and him had all these other bands that we've been doing. We've been in like 5 or 6 bands now together in the last like 6 years. So it's like,
yeah,
we always encourage him to do more backing vocals and shit like that when he's on drums, because we had this band called Pyre, and it was just a 3-piece, so we all like did vocals and we all like shared everything and just like try to chop it up, you know what I mean? But when it came time, I was like coming up with this project, I was like, Mamo, this is the one where you get to be the lead singer and you just get to be out front, like no instrument, just the vocals, you know? He's like, hell yeah, let's do this shit. And originally we formed it to be on that purpose, but then the drummer we had, he actually quit the day that Shit Slime came out. And then we're like, well, Mamo, you got to play drums now. Sorry.
Okay. And, while we were just talking about Hot Graves, quickly for the listeners, there's a lot of releases going back. One in particular that I was able to sample today for a little while, that I just had to shout out and maybe ask you a little bit about, Days Before Plague mixtape, which I listened to on Bandcamp, released in June of 2020. And what I enjoyed about this is it's got like kind of it's called a mixtape, and it's got this like the kind of synthesizer sampled kind of intro and outro tracks, and it plays a little bit like a mixtape. And for the listeners, I don't want to put too many adjectives on it. I'll let you go into what you guys want to do with it, but it's a very cool, raw, kind of blackened, old school, thrashy sound. So I don't know if you want to take it from there and go into what that project was all about.
Yeah, for sure. Like the Days Before Plague is like, it's actually the demos of our upcoming album that's about to come out. But we tried to make it like a mixtape, like we said, like this is a mixtape of songs. Like there's songs that are on there that won't be on the album and all this kind of shit like that too. So, but that actually came out on a cassette tape, for real, on Noxious Ruin Records.
Yeah.
It was like a pretty limited press, but it was just for the hardcore fans, really, that one.
I definitely like the idea of trying to take the idea of a mixtape and translate it to underground extreme music. It's something I've attempted in the past, but we never really were able to do it with any of my bands. So it was really cool to see that. And now, speaking of that, you talked a little bit about ska, and you mentioned DJing. Is there any kind of like DJing or electronic music or maybe hip hop experience that you kind of have behind the scenes that you might bring to the table?
Oh, absolutely. I have a whole like production thing where I do like, beats and like weird electronic music and stuff like that. That's called Laser Commander, but it's spelled all crazy. It's spelled with no vowels, but it's LZRKMMNDR. But yeah, I mean, that's what really, I was like, why should I not incorporate this into the metal that I'm doing as well? It's just music. Like, let's make all this music,
Okay, so is that where we start getting a glimpse into the psychedelic realm that you take Wharf Lurch into, despite it being also such brutal death metal?
Absolutely. Like, to me, everybody's going to just be hammering away at riffs and doing this, that, and being brutal. But what about creating atmospheres and shit like that? That's where I start thinking, like, about where I'm going with with what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And now let me ask you this too, man. This is a little bit offbeat question here, but were you the guy in the neighborhood who was making beats and like rappers would want to come through to your house and record on a beat?
Yeah, I've definitely been that guy at multiple different stages of my life.
And how has that gone? How has that ranged and how it went?
No, mostly I would seek out the people, you know what I mean? Like I
Okay.
wouldn't really let people know. If I saw somebody who I thought was doing something cool, I would approach them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Like I'd be like, yo, you got some skills, let's fucking work on some shit, you know?
I know a lot of I knew a lot of aspiring producers when I was younger, I'll say, on Long Island, and still do know a few, and everyone's always got some story about somebody either coming through, and the one I know is a guy came through the studio and got so drunk, and whatever he was on, he nodded off before he even recorded one bar. And
Oh Jesus.
yeah.
Yo, for real though, Will, for real though. Hassan from Ripping Headaches told me I needed to go freestyle battle you when you guys came to Orlando.
Well, we should have, man. We should have, especially in 2018.
I know. I went looking for you. I couldn't find you. I didn't really know where the cuts were behind that venue. I'd never been there before.
Oh man!
But I was like, bro, I was definitely trying to come meet you and fucking chop it with you though.
In Orlando, that wouldn't be the Haven, right? What?
Yeah, it was the Haven. Yeah,
it was the Haven. Wow! Shout!
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's where the Hot Graves new lineup got cemented right there.
Yeah, the Haven is one of my favorite Florida venues. I've been there a few times, man. That's great. Oh man.
Oh really? That's cool. Yeah, that place is pretty tight. We ended up playing there like a year and a half later with Druid Lord.
Oh, Druid Lord's sick.
We played there like a month before the pandemic hit with Druid Lord.
Druid Lord is tight, man. They're kind of like that Sabbathy death metal thing, man. They're good, man.
Kind of, but they really do have their own fucking vibe at this point. They really like stumbled into their own complete style of deathy doom shit. Like you can hear the influences, but they still do it different, and it's so cool.
I eventually got to get them. They're guys from a certain generation too. They're a little bit older too, right?
Oh man, hell yeah! You need to talk to them, bro.
Sure,
because Tony, he's in Massacre. They're like, he's taking off to fucking Finland right now to go play with Massacre.
Nice, the good life. There you go, man.
And Pete, you know, he was in Equinox and all that kind of shit, bro. Like they were in Acheron, they were in all those cool bands, bro.
Yeah, we were. I think we talked. I think Gurgling Gore might have put him. There's a tape of theirs out, maybe because I feel like I talked about this on an episode.
He put he put Druid Lord tapes out. Yeah, but they're on like Hell's Headbangers as well.
Yeah, that's what, because I had previewed them and talked about them with Big Daddy Gore, and it's funny because that I also interviewed shout to Garrett from Maul, whom Warflurch you did a 3-way split with. It was Thorns and Maul, right? Just most recently.
Yeah, that was the last thing I think that came out. Really, yeah.
Okay, man. So. Getting back on track here, man. With we kind of left off talking about Warflurch. You started that because you and John had so many ideas. You have been a lot of other projects. When you put it out, did you have the intention of getting a lineup going, or was it more like you saw the project picking up steam in the underground scene and getting attention? So you were like, let's get some more people together and get a full lineup.
Well, to be real about it, in chronological order, it went like this. We decided to do it. We started doing it. We put out the first demo just online in the beginning of 2020. I started after that writing songs, like demoing them out on my computer with like programmed drums and all that shit. And then Hot Graves got asked to play Total Death Over Mexico 3, so we ended up shifting all our energy into rehearsing for that. So we just powered down on that instead of working on the Warflurch shit. And then when we got out there to play the show, of course, and it was in March, and that's when the pandemic started. So when we got back, it was like, fuck, well, let's just, you can't, it was like on pandemic lockdown. So we were like, boom, let's just record music and let's just have band practice and just keep writing songs and blah, 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 blah. So we ended up writing this whole Hot Graves album and all this new Warflirt shit. You know, it was like a lot of shit going on. We were out there like 4 or 5 days a week at the practice shed, sweating our asses off.
Nice, man. You say shed, you bring me to a question. I didn't get to really ask you before when we were talking about growing up, but do you live in what's more of like a rural area, or do you live like more towards the city? You said shed, that kind of cued me off.
Well, the shed means like it's like a warehouse unit. Yeah, I mean, like the type of thing you might work on your car in or something.
Got it. I know.
But like that's the type of place you can get to, like, you know, have a band rehearsal place. So you might like hang a bunch of carpet up on the walls and like, you know, do all that kind of shit.
I know a local gore grind band that operates out of a very similar type of shed. And yeah. shout to the Bile, the Shed classic album. All right, so with Warflurch, you guys, I mean, it sounds like Hot Graves and Warflurch are kind of like moving ahead full steam. Pandemic slows you down a little bit in terms of playing out, but you're both writing all this stuff. When things come out, do you see, I mean, you must have seen that you definitely built something with Warflurch after the pandemic when things started opening up a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Like, we recorded all this stuff, and then I got in touch with Big Daddy Gore. Hey. And then, you know, we formed a mutual bond of thinking, you know, hey, you know, you're a new label, we're a new band. Let's start a new thing. Let's fucking do this shit. So he put out our first demo, like the actual Lurking Doom demo. And, I mean, it went pretty good. It sold out in like 20 hours or something like that.
Okay. And Psychedelic Realms of Hell is the full length you would eventually put out with Big Daddy Gore on Gurgling Gore
Dude,
Records.
You know what? What's today? The 31st?
Yes, of August, yeah.
So on September 3rd, which is like, 4 days from now, that'll be a year ago that album came out.
Wow, okay. This is actually really good timing because this interview will be out the September 2nd, the day before that. That's cool, man. All right, so that's good. So here we are at the year. I can act like I knew that. Here we are at the year anniversary of your album, Psychedelic Realms of Hell.
Here we are.
Now, going into that, it's like the first full length. I mean, you guys have kind of established what you want to do, but in terms of composition and songwriting, like where were you at, man? Like, did you want to really bring out the synthesizers and the sci-fi element of it? I mean, you had those, what was it, a vocoder on the narration vocals at some point? Like, there's a story there, isn't there, about some ancient spores and things that you're trying to tell?
Oh, there's definitely a story, man. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole story is like about like basically that mushrooms were sent to Earth from across the universe on an asteroid that hit us or whatever, and then like they took over our planet, and they've basically been running shit ever since.
Huh. Okay, man. And I like this. Is this something you're going to continue, or well, I should say, did you continue to explore that? Yeah, the whole album is a story. Like, so it starts where that happens, and it happens to our planet because it's a nice place to like grow mushrooms, right? Of course. So that's why they sent it here. But then, of course, other species begin to evolve because of this, and you know. And then the second song is the Stoned Ape Apocalypse, and it's about how, like, you know, apes were eating mushrooms, and that advanced their brain at a more rapid rate than it normally would have because, you know, of all this like tripped out fucking mycelial magic that was going on. You know what I mean? Right. So that's how we get death metal. Yeah. So then, right. Fast forward to the present time and everything's fucked up. People are all weird. And our protagonist says, fuck this. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm tripping on mushrooms and finding the real meaning of whatever the fuck. And that's when like the real journey begins, you know? Okay. Wow. A lot there. So now with Warflurch, the idea of like this, these spores and all this sort of thing. Something I wanted to ask you with the idea of psychedelics. First of all, is it like a requirement for, say, a new band member, or say you had you had to grab a session guy to go on tour with?
Nah, man. Like our bass player Kerry, he's a very good boy. He doesn't do any of that stuff, so he's a good boy though. We love him. He's fine.
Okay, and then would you describe, any band member who allegedly has a relationship with psychedelics? Is that relationship spiritual or more recreational?
Both, definitely.
Both. Okay.
We're all very like hell fucking yeah about that shit. All the members who get down.
Okay. Now,
trust me, like that shit saved my life in a very real way.
Now this is
it just
something
changed my mind, It changed my attitude. You ever hear some adult tell you that you need an attitude adjustment when you were a kid?
Yes.
Yeah, for real. There was a point in my life where I really needed an attitude adjustment, and fucking, I'm gonna tell you right now, mushrooms helped me adjust my attitude into a much better thing by far.
Well, all kidding aside, there definitely is an argument being made right now for what you're talking about. You see it in the news a lot and in the medical community about people trying to use that. I first remember being brought up in the news to help people who are dealing with PTSD. Now it's being brought up for a whole range of different illnesses, mental illness, and things that people are suffering from. So I've even seen it. I saw something the other day, an article saying that it was helping people who were dying accept and die peacefully.
My man, yeah. Do you have Netflix, my brother?
Yeah, I have access to it, allegedly. Yeah.
So there's a documentary on there called Fantastic Fungi. You need to watch that. Asapolis.
Okay, so that Asapolis. That's probably what that's one of the things that people are probably talking about, man. That's probably why it's in the news a little bit more too. All right, so I want to get down to the bottom of this.
I'm just saying, man. No, like it's a beautiful documentary, but like there's some cheesy elements to it. But most of all, it helps me remember how connected we all are to like the ebb and flow of death and decay and everything, and rebirth and regeneration. You know what I mean? It's like a very beautiful thing when you think about it. It does, like, to me, there's like a beauty in death metal if you want to celebrate death. Like, I don't think about death as necessarily being like a fucking horror movie fucking thing. I think about death as being like this like crazy transformation where you're like going through this portal and you're like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? Like a definite different dimensional shift paradigm thing,
Wow. Yeah, I kind of know what you're getting at, and there's definitely a way to look at it where you see it as a natural function, and you can even see a thing of beauty or a thing of tranquility in it. Absolutely, man.
And it's not like we have to make hippie happy ass music about it, but I'm saying we could frame it lyrically that way, to make it cooler, to make it different.
Yeah, I think that there's the idea of psychedelic death metal, although it might not be something that's been explored a lot through the years. I think it is. There's something natural about it. The idea of kind of combining these like very super colorful musical elements into the gritty depth of death metal. It works, and it works compositionally very well for that reason. So I think there's something to be said for that duality,
I agree, man. And I also think that, like there was a lot of people that were like, they thought our album wasn't even psychedelic enough because we put the word psychedelic in the title. You know what I mean? Like we didn't go hard enough or something. And I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, what do you want to do? A Jimi Hendrix cover or something? You know, you can't push it too far. I think.
Oh man, to me that shit ain't psychedelic. To me, psychedelic is like when you're listening to it and I don't know, stuff is happening in the stereo field and and like there's sounds you don't recognize and all that kind of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I gotta say, there seems to be a push in a lot of modern death metal towards that sort of counterculture. All of a sudden, it's like I remember back when Chris Barnes being like a big marijuana advocate in terms of like his merch and his death metal, like it was a really oddball thing for a while, and you wouldn't really see that sort of thing. Now and then Cephalic Carnage was a very oddball thing with the marijuana shit in death metal, but nowadays,
yeah, but they meant that shit though. They really meant.
Oh yeah, I love them, but but like nowadays, like a lot of bands just have their logo and the marijuana leaf and like that. That's a very standard death metal shirt nowadays, which I'm all for.
Well, that's a lot of bootlegs that do that, bro.
Allegedly,
I think it's bootlegs doing that shit, bro.
Maybe not. Don't look at my silk screens.
Hey yo, boss. Though, did you ever see Cephalic Carnage live, bro?
I have a few times. Yeah.
Oh man, I saw them once and they were fucking amazing.
Even though in Florida,
I saw them in Tallahassee.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, and they were on tour with Mastodon and like Dysrhythmia and like somebody else maybe.
That's cool. Good bill.
Yeah, they were fucking good though.
I saw them at the Milwaukee Metal Fest in 2000. And they were they were allegedly throwing out little baggies of weed at the crowd. I didn't get one.
That's alleged.
Yeah, so I can't attest to that. I don't know. It might have been a demo. Might have been a demo. And I saw them in Brooklyn, here in New York, maybe like 2002 or 3. They were. It was a weird tour. It was like them and like Creator and Destruction. And then, yeah, it was a very oddball tour, especially for the early 2000s. Yeah, and it was at a venue here.
That's weird as fuck.
Yeah, people who know L'Amour's in Brooklyn in the early 2000s, they would have like 6 or 7 local bands sell tickets and open up. So it was very.
Oh god,
it was a long night, but it was a good set by those guys.
Oh, that's hateful, man. I hate shows that are more than 4 bands.
Oh, dude, a few
of
my friends.
Unless it's a festival.
Well, yeah, obviously, but yeah, like a local show on a Friday or Saturday night, if you just get 3 strong bands to play a good long set, you're good,
Yeah, like don't give me this 6-band shit. No way.
And then the club can knock off the PA at 11 o'clock and have karaoke night or dance night or whatever they do. We all know how that.
Oh, dude, the worst time I ever seen of some shit like that in some Hot Graves history time, bro. We played with Watain in fucking Orlando, dude.
Wow.
And we were at this club. It used to be called the Back Booth. It's called something different now. I can't remember, but it's right downtown, and like they were having like a dance night later that night or something like that. So our show started hella early. So our band played, and then it was like Black Anvil and then Watain or something like that. And dude, Watain does what Watain does, but these people are trying to like get ready to have like a fucking club night after that. And you see these people walking around and they have like 2 cans of Lysol in each hand and like they're like going crazy, trying to like fucking fumigate the stink of death out of the fucking club, dude. It wasn't working.
Wow, Watain. Well, did you get to meet those guys or?
I've met them multiple times, actually.
Oh yeah. I mean, I with all due, with all due respect. I mean, if I interviewed them, I'd show them the respect. But I'm just saying, what was, that they got to be interesting guys to meet in person.
Well, all right. So, that was not my first time opening for Watching.
Okay.
But that time, they had the guitar player who was the guy from The Devil's Blood playing lead guitar for them. You know what I'm talking about?
The Devil's Blood is like a very like kind of cult band. from
Yeah, they're
Europe.
like
I know, right?
they're like kind of like a rock, occult rock type shit.
Yeah.
But that dude, he was playing guitar for Watain. He killed himself. His name was like Salim something. I forget. I can't remember right now.
Okay, I'm not. I'm not
I
into the.
apologize to everybody and rest in peace to my man. But like,
Yeah.
he definitely is dead. And like, but he played in that shit. But we recognized him from being in The Devil's Blood, and we were like, oh shit. Because we were already sound checking Devil's Blood songs when we were on stage everywhere we went, like for the last couple months or whatever.
Wow. What about?
We were fanning out a little bit on the dude from The Devil's Blood more than we were on Watain, is what I'm saying.
Wow, and he's not on Earth anymore, huh? He
Yeah, no, rest in peace, man.
All
Fuck.
right. Rest in peace. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Watain's got that reputation that kind of precedes them. We've all heard the stories about the blood and the death and all that sort of thing.
Dude, I know some firsthand stories. I ain't even definitely gonna tell here, bro. But like,
Yeah.
damn, dude.
Yeah, I've heard some things I don't want to corroborate here because I can't. I don't know, but we've all heard those weird second stories. All right, man. While we're in this realm of conversation, shout out to Manticore, who I had on the show recently too, man. They're kind of in that realm of death aura atmosphere, death metal and black.
You said Manticore, right?
Yeah, Manticore. Yeah,
Manticore is sick as fuck, dude. I have some Manticore records.
Yeah,
real.
they're into that evoking the aura of death live too, man. They might need the Lysol when they play too. So
yeah, they're gross. Yeah,
their new album is gross in a good way. But
for real though.
All right, so getting back again, Hot Graves strongly recommended for the listeners too, especially if maybe you just got this episode going because you know Wharf Lurch, or because you just listened to the show. That's definitely something that you should give a spin. And you said you guys have something new coming out, right?
Oh yeah, dude. We have a full length album coming out, man.
Recorded
already.
already?
It's gonna be pretty good. Sorry.
No, all good, man. So it's recorded already?
I don't want to say too much about it, but like, yeah, it's just we're waiting, man. It's gonna come out though.
Got it. All right. And then as far as before I kind of close up with Wharf Lurch and ask you what's new with that quickly, I do want to get a big shout out to Plasmodulated.
Right on, man.
Yeah, well, that's like, if I got that right, that's kind of like your latest release of anything, right? Because you put out the self-titled 2022 EP, right?
Yeah. That was my little solo thing, man. And like, I actually just got a box of CDs from the label of that, like 2 days ago. So I'm very, very excited about that.
What label was that?
Personal Records out of Mexico.
Personal Records, okay. And that's a cool. I saw something online. Is it true? I'm not a guitarist. I wouldn't know. Is this in standard tuning, Plasmodulated?
It's in E flat standard. Yeah, it's not drop tuning at all. It's just an E flat. It's like how Eddie Van Halen might play death metal or something, you know?
Beautiful. I noticed there was some really cool, what people might identify more as like traditional heavy metal guitar work going on there in Plasmodulated, aside from the typical like brutal dark death metal that was there. Did you choose that tuning for a special reason?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, so I was like, I just had this idea to like make some old school yet new school. I don't know. I was trying to mix up the thrash and the old school death metal thing, but make it like brutal style with the super low vocals. So I wanted to make the like riffs be really chunky and kind of like uptuned, but the vocals to be really low and like guttural. You know what I mean?
Okay, definitely, man. I hear it, and I think it's a good mix. And it's because there's like a lot of clarity, but you still have there's some guitarists who've told me that you can get the most heavy brutal riffs out of standard tuning. I know some guitarists who've
well, I felt like, I get what you're saying, and it's like I felt like it was a challenge. It was like, man, can I make this feel like death metal? You know what I mean? And not feel like thrash metal. You know what I mean? Like that was my challenge because I wanted to like kind of harken back to the era where everything was like right on the edge from being thrashed to death. You know what I mean? But like, you know, more death metal in an intent of riff.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like Florida back in the day was ground zero for that, for like the line between thrash metal and death metal, especially from like a technical guitar kind of mindset.
Yeah, man, for sure. Because like there was all these bands that were like, they were kind of crossovers shit. Like there was a band called Raped Ape from Florida that was
Yeah.
super sick. You know them?
I know the name, and I have an old compilation called the Slammy Awards that has like one or two songs by them.
Dude.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know,
Nice.
know where I got that.
I forgot about the Slammies, dude. Wow.
Yeah, that was like kind of like a fest or a show that would go on down there, right?
It was like a bullshit little award thing. It was based around a magazine.
Okay. But
it was cool. It was cool.
I think I actually, now that I remember, where I bought it from like a used CD store many years ago because I recognized Malevolent Creation, and the rest of the bands were I think every other band on there was kind of like more of like a crossover thrash type of band.
Yeah, pretty much. Probably. Well, you probably saw it was probably like Gardy Lou.
Yeah.
And like
probably those bands, yeah.
And like Raped Ape and oh fuck. Definitely Malevolent Creation played a lot down in like Fort Lauderdale and all that area. Even before, like they had a record deal and they would just play these other shows in Fort Lauderdale, like these little ass shows that were sick as fuck. Okay. They were good. They always had a good drummer, at least.
I was just looking. I'm not going to dig up the CD now, but yeah. Okay, and you've been very generous with your time. Before I let you go, though, something I got to ask. Being that you're kind of like a multi-instrumental mastermind with a lot of your projects are known maybe for, or at least Wharf Lurch is known for some synthesizers and some sound effects. Let's talk gear for 1 minute. If you could just give us a rundown of what you use to get those crazy sounds. What kind of synthesizers or even programs? I don't know. How do you get the sci-fi effects?
Well, I do a lot of things. Like I have a lot of different synthesizers. I have like some Novation. I have a Novation Ultra Nova. I have an Novation Micro, or fuck, I can't even remember what it's called right now. I have a lot of synthesizers, man. And I also have a lot of effects pedals, especially from Lone Wolf Effects and Void Manufacturing. So those like shape a lot of the sounds that we do with the guitars and the synthesizers for like what we're recording, especially for, you know, there's the interlude stuff, but a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of synthesizer stuff going on in the actual songs behind the riffs. They're just kind of mixed a little lower. It's just filling the shit out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's good headphone music.
Thank you. That's how I feel about it. Like, I want people to like, you know, take time to listen to how shit is, because we pan shit out and do all kind of weird shit to make sure it's like, you know, exciting here and there. You know,
you want people to take an eighth of shrooms and put on the Beats headphones, and just zone out in the park somewhere for a couple of hours. I get it. Works.
Honestly, dude, like one of the last like times I tripped really hard, I actually listened to the test pressing of the album, and I was just like planted in front of the speaker, and I'll tell you how it went, bro. Like I was listening to it, and it starts, and I'm like, "Oh, this is really cool! Wow, what happened here? Like this is so cool." And then, like towards the end of the first side, I'm like, "This album sounds fake. What the fuck is this weird shit? Who the fuck did this?" And then I turned the record over and I was like, "Oh, this is beautiful." I don't know. It fucked me up, dude.
Yeah, you got to watch, man. It'll play with you sometimes. They'll play the shell game with you sometimes, those shrooms.
Hey, man, you know, all of it just opens it up, man.
It opens everything up. It does, man. So All right, so that's the synthesizers, and just like, what are you working with typically in terms of a guitar, and what you run it through? What you'd like to share, maybe?
I have a guitar that I tuned down really low. It's a Dean V guitar that's like some sort of signature model, but I put a Warflurch sticker over the signature, so now I've forgotten who it was. But I play that through an orange amp, a CR120, which is a solid state amp, which I'm happy to not have to deal with tubes. And I like solid state amps. I totally suggest having a solid state amp to anyone.
All right, man.
But but that's just me. But Steven has we have we have a sponsorship actually, but like we still love all this shit. But Lone Wolf Effects and Void Manufacturing gives us a lot of like good effects stuff so we can make our psychedelic nightmares happen on stage and in the studio. So we got to give a shout out to that. But mostly, Steven has like a Randall head, maybe, I think. Can't remember. Haven't seen it in so long. We've just been recording stuff in the personal studios. But yeah, we got a lot of like crazy pedals. That's the main thing about it, is collecting weird pedals.
Yeah, people love that. It's an expensive game.
It really is, dude. But I think I'm done, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, they're going to pull you back in just like Al Pacino.
For real.
Yeah, shout out to our pedal heads out there, man. Now, all right, so we're going to give you the opportunity to plug and promote any upcoming shows or our albums or any other things that we might have missed out on talking about. But I'm going to ask you the typical Heavy Hole podcast line of questioning now, which is, could you recommend for me and the listeners one newer album or release, EP, demo, whatever, and one older one? No strict, stringent rules, just something from a little bit back in the day and something a little bit more recently by your standards. And I'm going to throw in a bonus round, recommend a ska record for us.
Okay. Well, if you want me to recommend a new album, I feel like I'm recommending the Pharmacist album.
Yeah.
The Flourishing Extremities on Unspoiled Mental Grounds album. You know what I'm saying, bro?
Yeah, Pharmacist from Japan. Isn't that guys that are from like other bands people know about? It's kind of like a super group type of thing, or am I wrong?
I don't know, man. It's all shrouded in mystery.
Okay. All right. The less said, the better. But yeah, definitely good for the listeners to check out.
Nah, I've been listening to that album. All the songs are like 7 minutes plus. It's just fucking gnarly, dude. It's just like, and there's a lot of really cool guitar work on there. I don't know. If you for me, like, I don't like Carcass like everybody else likes Carcass. I like the bands that sound like Carcass, that did it a little different or a little better or whatever with better production. They did the older times of Carcass in a different way.
There's something to be said for that. I know exactly what you mean, man. Like, Carcass's first two albums spawned a whole genre of gore grinds.
Right.
You know?
But those albums were recorded horribly. But there's all these other bands who did it really cool.
Yeah.
After that, and the recordings were better. But I like the newer wave that's doing it now, like Septage and like Pharmacist, all that kind of shit, dude. That shit's fucking banging to me.
Yeah, I see. I'm not too up on some of the newer bands. I gotta go there. Septage, you said too, huh?
Septage, yeah.
All right.
Oh man, yeah. They're from Denmark, I think. Yeah.
All right, sweet, man. Yeah, I see. Because I was really into the 90s wave, like Dead Infection and Squash Bowels and Regurgitate and that whole gore. And then like the Razorback wave in the early 2000s when they were really aping Impetigo and Carcass.
Yeah.
That shit was cool, man. I'm not so up on the latest wave.
Yeah, back then I was like definitely aware of all of those releases too. You know what I mean? I was like very hype about all that shit. That's so funny, man, because I don't even care about shit like that much these days. But like this stuff, I don't know. It's like a little different.
Yeah.
Because they're like hitting on that heart work era a little harder. You know what I mean? But they're still including the old stuff, like the, you know, like the fucking, yeah.
Yeah, if you can hit all that noisy gore grind stuff with a little bit of the sweet melody, there's a sweet spot to be had there.
Oh.
Definitely. And what about what about something a little bit older then?
Like an old, like death metal, a little bit older?
Any genre.
We're going to talk about something just a little bit older right now.
Go for it.
We're going to talk about Mithras.
Mithras.
On Strange Eons. You know that album?
No. I'm listening.
Oh, man. It's like, okay, I guess it came out in like 2016, maybe late 2016. It's like Mithras, they put out a bunch of albums. I don't know. I guess they're kind of considered tech death or something like that, but I don't know. I don't really consider them like that. They're like a punky version of it, if that. But like, I don't know. They made an album that's like cosmically fucking super lit, heavy as hell. The lyrics bring me to my knees, man. They're fucking beautiful. Like the idea, like these like extra huge cosmic ideas that they drop in these lyrics are fucking sick, bro.
And how is the band name spelled?
Mithras.
Okay, Mithras. All right. That's something to look up, man. Definitely for me and the listeners. I'm not familiar with that.
I mean, they have classic albums that like came out a while ago that people regard well, but like listen to the last album and read the lyrics along, because like I know you'll appreciate it, man. Because like, so for me, I'm gonna just keep it real right now. Like, listening to like Artificial Brain albums and like reading along with the lyrics is like it hits way different. You have to like really know what the shit is saying to feel like why the music does what it does. You feel me?
Yeah.
So it's like, so you want to listen to the lyrics. Like if you can't understand what they're saying, obviously you want to like read the lyrics and feel the whole thing happening at one time, you know, like, and I feel like Mithras is another one of those albums like they really make it to where like you have to follow the whole thing along to get the vibe.
Well, I appreciate that insight, and I mean that's kind of like a big part of what I do is the idea that you can't understand any of the vocals, but if you follow along with the lyrics, there is something being said.
You have
underneath
to. You have to go, man. Yeah. You have to go in and wonder why the hell. You know,
it's a mystery. It's one of the mysteries of the universe.
Why the hell somebody put the lyrics to this?
Why would you do it?
You gotta fucking figure it out, bro.
Why would you do it?
That's what was beautiful to me about all that shit. Because like every time I've really wondered, I've been like amazed. I've been delighted. I've been so fucking, you know, enraptured with the shit that I found. You know what I mean?
100%. And now let's flip it for a second. Let's say this. Let's say I'm like your death metal friend who has no idea what ska is and thinks it's like pop punk or something. What album would you recommend they check out? What ska out or ska oriented or adjacent album?
I don't know. I would recommend checking out like a Trojan Records ska, like some sort of compilation or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't listen to no white people playing this shit first.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Trojan Records. That was the classic Jamaican label, right?
Yeah. I mean, like that's a good one. Like, cause like you got to think about it. Like Jamaican music went in waves. In the early waves, it was ska. In like the late or the mid '60s or whatever, and then it turned into rock steady, and then they slowed it down a little more, and it turned into reggae. Right? You know what I mean?
Okay.
There's a whole like paradigm shift for how the music was performed and how it was called.
That's.
I'm sorry. I speak as an ethnomusicologist major, and look, I studied Jamaican music super heavily.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, boss.
Okay, so there's a lot there, man. Now,
like, look, man, like, I know you love rap music. Look, man, rap music in America would not exist if it didn't come from Jamaica, for real.
well, I know enough. I've seen enough in documentaries and things to know that a lot of it comes from like the DJ culture of putting speakers out in the streets.
That's Jamaican culture from the 60s.
And then that kind of came to New York City, and that's like the beginnings of hip hop in a lot of ways.
That's real shit.
Yeah, that's I mean that's kind of like very textbook beginnings of hip hop. People can look up. There's a lot of documentary, especially nowadays. There's been a lot more coverage.
But here's the thing. So if you really actually listen to Jamaican music, and this is shit that comes from like 1973, 4, 5, whatever. You can hear people in Jamaica just rapping on the beat, just like anybody in America would do. Like 5 or 6 years later. I mean, that shit's on records.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, step it to the beat, a rocket to the beat. Like they're saying all the same kind of things as like those guys were doing, but it was being recorded and they still put it out on records,
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting stuff there, especially like dub music and that whole culture. Because when you see they're pressing records, it just reminds me of like this kind of like pirating of records and pressings of records that was done, and they kind of made their own style of music with that, the dub music.
Well, dub music even comes from like just the producer. He owns the music, right? So the band played it and he recorded it, and he can mix it however he wants. So he might like fire up the echo over here, the reverb over here. And when he plays it, he's like, doing different mixes of it. So he can record like 5, 6, 7 different mixes of the same beat that was played by just a certain number of musicians, but just with different, things being pulled in and brought back out and all that kind of shit. So that's where dub culture comes from.
I just got the sickest idea for a bootleg a cappella remix of the latest Artificial Brain album, but we'll never. Who knows?
Yo, I want that so bad, baby.
With just like little like heavily reverbed sound effects in the background, Oh man, dub style. But
honestly, that would be the sickest shit ever, though. Like people would listen to that. Especially if I did.
Nowadays, it's wide open, man. We'll talk. because it was.
I got you.
There's a lot of ideas that started off as jokes. Who knows?
Dude, I don't give a fuck. To me, like when my homies used to hang around and joke about shit and then not do it, I would get mad. I'm like, why didn't we do that thing we were joking about? They're like, whatever, dude. And I'm like, no, we could have did it. Like, nah, fuck that. Let's do everything,
Yeah, I don't get me started, man. I'll get some of my bandmates angry who listen to the show. Shout out to them, man, because I'm always I'm full of ideas, and not everyone necessarily sees things the way I do, man. You know how it goes.
No, true. Okay, yeah, we got to pump the brakes. Hold up.
Yeah. But wow. So all right, I had you on a long time. You threw me for a loop just now with that. What'd you say? Music? What was it that you studied?
Ethnomusicology.
Ethnomusicology.
Yeah,
so
bro.
Is that like you kind of picked like reggae and Jamaican music and that sort of thing, or you learned about a lot of?
I mean, I did, but there was still this whole thing where I had to do this like thesis about how African music had made its way from Africa to South America and the West Indies into pop music of today. You know what I mean?
Okay, got it, man.
It was like a thesis kind of fucking thing. You know what I mean?
That's interesting. So that being said, go ahead.
I don't know, but everything that was meant to go through it and all the money that I had to come up with to come through it, I was like, damn, all I'll end up being is like a fucking teacher or something. And I didn't want to do that. So I gave that up and started a record label and a couple bands and a bunch of shit. You know what I mean?
Huh. So was any part of that learning?
Sorry, what?
No, I'm sorry. Was any part of those classes performance based? Did you learn how to play instruments or play styles of music?
Oh yeah, no, well, not once I moved up here, but when I was in college on scholarship, yeah, I was in the like orchestral band, I was in the jazz band, I was in the jazz combo, I was in the percussion ensemble. I had 4 different like live performing groups that I had to be a part of to like fulfill the requirements of my scholarship.
Okay, wow. So that gives people a little bit more insight into your background and maybe why we hear such a wide array of influence, maybe, or kind of like a leaning into different influences in Warflurch and other projects that you've been involved in. Even Plasmodulated, maybe, is that you do have a very broad spectrum of experience, and like, you know, and you do have a lot of, I guess we'll just say, like, formal training musically.
That is kind of true. I do have a certain amount of formal training musically. Yes, that is true. That is very true.
Do you?
I mean, I do have a college degree on it too, as well.
well, yeah. I mean,
but like, it was like the college degree has nothing to do with how I play guitar. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird.
I mean, it might be hard to draw like a direct line, but I'm just saying.
But I didn't go to college to play guitar. I was in college playing like vibraphones and like xylophones and shit like that.
Well, I mean in a good way that people know they're dealing with a professional, so to speak, an educated musician, and also now because your upbringing, you said, you know, your dad was a guitarist. He knew a lot of cool music and things like that. So you kind of had like an informal introduction to music, and you rounded it out with a formal education. Like, do you ever? Does your dad still like jam ever? I know you said he kind of stopped playing in bands and things like that, but does he still have a guitar? Do you jam with him, or do you ever talk guitar with him or anything?
Oh, dude, like my dad, like when Hot Graves started not doing things, my dad's band. He retired and his band started like playing gigs like 2 or 3 times a month. And I was seeing all this shit. He had a cover band with like these dudes down south or whatever. But at some point I went down there and we played fucking The Boys Are Back in Town with the guitar harmonies and all that shit, bro. We fucking ripped that shit.
That's all. That sounds really fun, man. That's cool, dude.
Yeah, it was sick. But yeah, my dad plays like right now though. I got him into like, you know what I'm saying, making tracks on his fucking computer that he could play guitar over and shit like that, right? I taught him how to like use all the like garage band shit. So I got my dog like, you know what I'm saying, jamming down on the computer.
That's great.
And he's like making songs and like, I made this song for your mom, and like, you know what I'm saying? It's sick, bro. I'm super proud of my dad. Like, he's just like expressing himself, bro. He's recording hella shit.
All right.
Getting it in.
He's recording his own one-man projects. That's great, man. That's sick.
Yeah, man. And he's got his like, you know, guitar forum buddies and shit. He's playing this shit. Yo, it's all good.
Nice. All right. So dad's still in the game too, man. I love a happy ending.
Hell yeah, bro.
So it's been really great talking to you. Mike Colby of Warflurch, Plasmodulated, Hot Graves, all these other projects you've been a part of over the years. Is there anything that you want to plug or promote, projects maybe that I didn't get into, or upcoming albums or upcoming shows?
Well, you know what? We definitely have an upcoming Hot Graves album. Just keep a lookout for that. Warflurch has a split coming out with Soul Devourment. You heard it here first, but it's coming out soon. And we have another split coming out with another band I won't mention just now. And then, you know, other than that, we just want everyone to stay flirty and enjoy their lives.
Stay flirty. All right. Thank you very much, Mike. We appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, Will, man. It was a pleasure to meet you, my bro.
Likewise, man. Stay flirty, man. All right.
Hey, I can't help that.